And so
Yeah.
she does a hook on there, and if you like looked at things, like she would be around. You know what I'm saying? Like she would be, like Cam was mentioning, like on mixtapes maybe, but like for some reason Olivia's presence was known in the group, even though I'm assuming she was supposed to have a solo album before then, but it just never came out.
Yeah, well, so what I researched was that he signed her back in 2004. So
Okay.
before Tony got finally officially just said I'm a free man, um, but Olivia just didn't have that much success, and that's when 50 started the hate parade where he was like, if you can't make a successful album, I'm just gonna drop you, and she was dropped in 2007, so she only lasted 3 years
Wow.
on G Unit.
I
Because
did not
again,
realize that.
yeah, she only lasted 3 years. 50 dropped her. He was like, "You're not successful. We thought we had a female rapper who could be successful. You're not that hot. You know what I'm saying? Hot right now." So he let her go. 3 years later, picture that, 3 years,
Yeah.
and that's you didn't get no album. You get nothing. You get a feature on one of the songs, and that's it. And Candy Shop, like I said, obviously Candy Shop's successful. It's an amazing success, but that's all you got. Really, technically, that's her time to shine. Really.
Sound like
And
good.
yeah, and that's when and that's when 50 started telling the group, hey, if you are not up to par, I am not afraid to drop any of y'all.
Damn.
But he he officially said to the group. He did make the statement too, which is kind of productive, of saying, I am reasonably drop if anyone can not make an album up to the par I want you to do, then I am going to freely drop any of y'all. You know what I'm saying? That includes everyone on the label except Tony Yayo. he had to make sure that last piece was in there. He said,
all I'm gonna say is Tony Yayo better get that in writing, cause
he said to the group, besides Yayo, he said Yayo's being my day one, and I could never, he's always gonna be GM for life. Period. He's safe. I'm like, woo! Of all people that you don't want to drop,
that Tony Yayo album was 50 Cent's favorite G Unit album. We're just gonna say it like that.
Man, man, man.
And you know what? But I'm glad you mentioned that, because I mean, we've been talking about like the super group. We've been talking about all the success. We've been talking about it's good times for G Unit right now. It's good times, but and again, I think it's difficult for us as outsiders looking in what it was really like. But 50 Cent as a person, he makes these comments, and so what it would be like to be working with him, like in a working relationship with him, if you could say it, a friendship with him, like the man does say some pretty, outlandish, harsh, some would say even trolling. I mean, he makes these comments not only toward people that he dislikes, but even to people that are supposed to be his quote unquote friends, label mates, co-workers. He really just has this kind of persona or this attitude of like, I don't care, for lack of a better language, I don't give a fuck. Like, no one is beyond the grasp of 50 Cent, basically talking shit on you, pretty much.
Like, let's just start. You know what I'm saying? The situation was, like I said, who didn't 50 had beef with? That's really the question we should be asking. Because I don't. Again, I hate to say that, but yeah, 50 had beef with everyone in the game. Like, there was not a single person that was exempt from his little, besides Tony Yayo, of course.
Yeah, well, yeah,
but that's all we got.
But then, even then, in recent times, that might have even changed too. So
yeah, again, as you said, in recent times, it might have been different.
So I think we've kind of touched on as far as like the up and coming and the just hype and success that the unit had made. I'm trying to think before we get into, because you're right, Cam. I think we do need to start talking or getting into the other side of the unit, because it's not all with success. There's going to be troubles, there's going to be hard times, and there's going to be battles, and in this case, very much really actual battles. 50 Cent's beef is an actual thing, and unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, that trickled down to his fellow G Unit team members, and so
yes,
they had to endure that along with him. And yeah, we'll definitely get into it. But before we do, I just want to say, so any other comments on the good times or the success, any other things that we could probably mention? one thing I'll say, and just kind of a minor note, is, we've been talking very much heavily on the music side of things and the album sales. We've been talking about, a little bit on just like musically what G Unit meant. But, for the people, again, because we're talking about this for a lot of people that may have not been around or not even born yet at that time, that know about hip hop nowadays, is, nowadays everybody got merch. You go any random YouTuber, anybody, SoundCloud rappers, like everybody, oh, go get my merch, go get my merch, go get my merch. But, like 2004, that wasn't a thing. You didn't, and, you could get a hustle. I'm sure there was guys on the streets that knew a guy, they were selling their t-shirts out, out of their trunks of their cars or whatever like that. Yeah, I'm not saying that didn't exist, but to a mass audience, if you wanted a merch, quote unquote, merch deal or product deal, it wasn't as accessible as it is nowadays. Like nowadays, you get a couple thousand followers on a YouTube channel. Companies are willing to work with you. They're willing to answer your emails. Back then, hell no. If you had to be the somebody of somebody's, and then maybe a company will look at you and say, oh yeah, we'll do a deal with you, and at this point in time, the reason why I'm saying all this is because not only was G Unit a presence musically, but like, we've mentioned the G Unit clothing brand. That was definitely a thing. I remember kids at school going crazy about that. Everybody wanting the G Unit shoes. I think 50 Cent did the deal with Reebok, who's mainly producing those.
Yeah, the Reeboks and the clothing brand. Again, as we said earlier, this is a big name person. This is Mark Echo who did the clothing brand.
Is that who did it? Okay, then yeah.
Yeah, so we're looking at Echo, the Echo man himself, to make this deal. So that's huge.
And I think it also at this point in time too, again, timing. I think timing, which is something I never thought about before, but timing really was pretty good for 50 Cent and G Unit, because I would say early 2000s, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but I would say is like really you started seeing the kind of like hip hop artists diving more into other things like clothing brand. Because, I think about, just as an example, I think about the early 90s, I'm thinking, Wu-Tang Clan, I'm thinking Tupac, I'm thinking Eazy-E. And even then, I don't remember, Tupac never said, oh yeah, go get my clothing, Tupac t-shirts. No, like that wasn't a thing, or I don't remember, Method Man saying, oh yeah, them Wu-Tang shirts are in stores now. Like, no, but then you get to the 2000s and you have, brands like Southpaw, you have brands like Fubu, you have brands like Fat Farm, you have brands, and then of course what we're talking about, G Unit. So I do think 50 Cent definitely took this advantage of incorporating, a hip hop style brand and getting it in stores for people to buy,
Yeah, I would say the same thing, like what you just said, Ace. Like, you start seeing rappers becoming more business minded. You had like Jay-Z come out with the Rockaware.
Oh yeah.
You had Diddy come out with the Sean John. Even Master P came out with his clothing line. Like, the rappers were starting to, take these business minds and starting to put it into different things, whether it had been clothing, whether it had been cologne, shoes, whatever, you know. That was their thing. And so
drinks.
Yeah, with the energy
Lil Jon
drinks.
Crunk Juice.
Yeah, Crunk Juice, all that stuff.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. All that stuff.
That lasted maybe 2 years at
And
most.
no, I mean, I'm sure we can find some bottles on eBay.
Woo!
Yeah.
Woo!
That drink there. But so I would just think that when you think about the G Unit clothing there, and that was big. Everybody wanted their clothes, the hoodies that they had, the shoes.
I mean, even me,
Yeah.
I remember
some.
wanting the
Yeah,
shoes,
I
the
had
black
some.
shoes with the white cursive written G Unit. I mean, to me, those were cool. They were pretty sick.
See, I always wanted a pair, and I always wanted one of those hoodies. I was like, man, I wanted one of those Gorilla Unit hoodies. I always did. And then, then it was the video game,
Oh yeah, we gotta talk
the
about
50 Cent
Bulletproof.
So yeah, so it was like, wait a minute, he's got his own video game now, like on top of the clothes and the shoes, like, so he was just going into everything. So it was just going into things that other rappers wasn't doing at the time.
And yeah, no, definitely. And like Ty was saying, I mean, and I will say this to the people, listening, is like nowadays, one thing I've talked about, mainstream media, I've talked about MTV, but also like Double XL magazine, and there was other ones. Like I think, and I'm not for sure why, but like I didn't see Murder Dog as much. Murder Dog I know was prevalent in the early '90s, but I didn't see it as much. But definitely there was like, what was there? There was like there's King magazine, there was the Source magazine, Vibe magazine, yep. So like these were the ones that were in the newsstands, and like I know people are saying like a magazine. What are you talking about? But no, I mean, back in 2004, 2005, like it wasn't like there was no Twitter. I mean, there was no Twitter, there was no God damn, there was no even Facebook really. At least there was no Facebook that was like available to everybody like it is now. So if you wanted the inside scoop on these hip hop artists or what was going on in hip hop, you went to the magazines. You went to the hip hop magazines. So. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because, I remember getting those XXL magazines and like almost you would see tons of advertisements for 50 Cent vitamin water, and 50 Cent. He's boxing, he's jump roping, he's doing it all. I think they even had a flavor called Formula 50. And
they did. You're correct.
That's crazy to me. So, definitely, like I said, in Double XL magazine itself, I don't know. I'm not trying to like accuse Double XL of this, but like G Unit and 50 got almost every other cover. Like, golly, like I was like
that's that brother.
And maybe this is the hater part of me that was coming out at the time, but like it just seemed like it was like, okay, September maybe have had one artist, then it was 50 Cent and G Unit, then then November another artist, then December we back to 50 Cent and G Unit on the cover. I'm like, damn, like. Are they the only ones making music right now? What's going on? Like,
and that's just how it felt because again, even thinking about what I just said earlier about the mixtapes, they put DJ Who Kid into an actual studio and literally gave him to host the G Unit radio station.
Oh, that's right. They had a radio station. Yeah,
they had a radio station, and DJ Who Kid was their person who ran that.
Yeah.
So again, you gotta think about that kind of situation. And they were just obviously play all their music at that time.
All them diss tracks, all that stuff.
All the tracks and even the mixtapes. They say, these are some underground G Unit songs you ain't heard before, and they'll play those. Obviously, they'll play the hits of what's popular right then. But majority of it, you had people just like always constantly. G Unit radio was a real thing, and DJ Who Kid over here like I'm G Unit's DJ. I gotta just follow what they say, and basically it's true though. You know what I'm saying?
I hope it wasn't like that. 50 Cent said you gonna get to work.
You don't get to work. Basically, he put him to work. Am I right? If you're radio station called G Unit Radio, what do you think they're gonna play? Like obviously, and again, and that's the opposite of what happened. And that's when we're gonna talk about the beef and everything later. But the fact is, all those artists that 50 was beefing with, did he allow them on those radio stations?
Oh,
no.
Hell no. Yeah, hell no.
So again, you gotta think about that. Like you know what I'm saying? If you listen to G Unit, then you be like, oh yeah, that person. Why ain't I heard nothing from him for a while? Usually it's because 50 was beefing with them at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And you get situation at this time. So it's like one of those things that just happen.
Yeah, no, I mean that makes a lot of sense. And and so and I tried looking up. Did you guys find anything on Bulletproof?
Bulletproof the album?
No, Bulletproof the video game. 50 Cent for the original Xbox and PS2.
Yeah. I watched gameplay and I played a little bit of it. So
I used to own the game. I played it. It didn't control the best, and
it was very
I will say for an original Xbox game, the graphics decent. Graphics are pretty decent. The music's. I will say this, like, again, going back and listening to the soundtrack for that game, it's actually pretty nice. I ain't gonna lie, that's some of G Unit's top quality stuff. Like they didn't skim. They didn't say, "Oh, we're just gonna phone it in because it's a video game." I'd say that's again still heat. So I would say this: if you guys don't have an original Xbox, or even if you're curious, like Cam, maybe watch a playthrough or a walkthrough. But definitely, if you're into this type of sound and you're hungry for more G Unit sound, check out that soundtrack. I have to even admit that that's pretty good. But the reason why, like I said, I tried doing some research of how this deal came about, how 50 Cent even decided to dip his toes in the whole video game scene. I couldn't find nothing. The only thing I found was that, if everybody remembers G4, I think it was for like the video game awards, he showed up to promote his game. And there was like one interview on YouTube, and it was just the interviewer was just thirsty. She was rubbing up on his arms and just kind of just wanting some 50, and that was about it. So
I bet you she got some 50 after that too, though. Like, I hate to say it.
Oh, come on.
Like 50 ain't, 50 was not tied down.
Probably.
Did you ever hear 50 about, have you ever heard 50 getting married? Come on now. You didn't hear about none of that stuff. He was out there.
I just remember the whole Vivica Fox situation.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
Oh, he talked stuff about her it was just bad.
But I remember.
What were you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna say. I do remember having the Bulletproof game on the PSP. And the soundtrack, man, was amazing. And the game,
it was
like it had its good moments, but also like the mechanics of it was just kind of wonky.
It was brick controls.
Wonky.
Everything was brick. It was not very smooth or anything. It was just very bricky.
Yeah,
and I think that was my biggest turnoff from the game. It wasn't smooth. When you just play a shooter or something like that, you want it to be, you want to dodge mechanic, you want all this other cool things, but your character just didn't move that fast. It was just sluggish the whole time.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, and then I don't even know if they have that. If there was like I don't know if it did very well or not sales wise for a video game. I mean, I'm sure maybe it did okay, but
now you know what else didn't do that well during this time period was that Get Rich or Die Trying movie.
Well, actually, that would come later on, but
no, it came in 2005. This is around that time.
Oh, okay. I mean, okay. So then, and so the movie didn't do very well. Now I will be, and actually, I guess we can go ahead and talk about that before we get into the beefs, because we will go into the beefs right after this. But, now have you guys seen the movie? The movie Get Rich or Die Trying. This is the Hollywood premiere of 50 Cent. Now I have not. Now, mind you, this was because this was the beginning of my hater phase, and so, I did go back and I watched somebody review it, and from my understanding, from what I've seen, it doesn't sound like it's very good. But I would like to hear your guys' take on it.
Go ahead, Cam.
I saw it, from the bits and pieces. I remember obviously the shot 9 times was probably the pivotal moment of the whole movie that you get to see and everything. Obviously, it's about a struggling guy who's trying to get off the streets. The generic story about, rags to riches. That's basically what the story was. Like, hey, he's a drug dealer on the street, and, he don't want that life no more, and he starts rapping, all the twists and turns, becoming this famous rapper. And that's literally what it's just a normal, rags to riches movie, basically.
And the reviewer that I watched, or the video that I watched on it, he he said some other things, but the word you just said there, he brought up as well. The term generic kind of came up. So,
I would say that's my biggest problem with it.
But T.Y., what do you think?
I'm just gonna add on to what Cam said, because everything he said was absolutely correct. I mean, it's basically like a rags to riches. It's just basically about a guy that's just trying to come up and just trying to be a rapper, a rap star. And the only thing I would say is that he also was trying to find the killer of his mom, because his mom had got killed by somebody.
Right. That's right.
And so he was trying to figure out who killed his mom also in the film. And then it's revealed later on in the film. I mean, it was okay. I mean, I thought it was all right, I had mixed reviews, I guess you could say, about it, but it was good. But it's basically just about, a guy that is trying to get his rap career off the ground. He's just trying to be a big rap star. He goes through some ups and downs during that time of trying to be a rap star. Of course he gets shot, and then he has to recover and bounce back from that. But, he's just trying to make it,
Mm-hmm.
That's all he's trying to do, just trying to make it. And he's just also trying to find who killed his mom.
Yeah, I mean, one of these days I'll have to sit down and watch it. The one thing that the reviewer that I was watching, he showed some clips from it. The one clip that got me, and it shouldn't have, it's terrible, but there's a scene where, like, I'm assuming it's a guy, again, because I've not seen the movie, but assuming, like, one of the people that doesn't like 50 Cent, one of the other characters in the movie, he comes up to, like, the main villain, and I guess he tells him something about, I think it's the guy that shot 50. He's telling the head honcho boss guy, like, yo, man, I shot him 9 times. And then the head boss takes out this, like, sword. It's like a sword cane and just stabs him. Just literally stabs the man to death. I was like, oh, Lord. Like, I was not expecting that. Like,
Well, again,
Like-
it can't be no
like-
evidence of who shot him. So, hey, if I was in that situation, you
I
know
was
what I'm
like-
saying? Get rid of the evidence.
No,
No
but the
snitches.
thing, but I thought that was kind of corny because it was like, but I shot him like 9 times. Like,
Yeah,
like so you got to tell him how many
It
times
had
you
to make sure
shot
they
him.
reference 9
The
shots
thing is,
over and
you
over
didn't
in the
kill him.
movie.
Like,
Because they knew that that's all they had. So it's like,
Yeah, well, no,
all we
and-
have is this.
Yeah, and 50 Cent will never want you to forget 9 times. He will always
He always.
like on
always.
this man on this man's tombstone say, "Here lies 50 Cent. I was shot 9 times."
I mean, and I think that was another thing that also rose his prominence up to the rap to being a big rap superstar is because he got shot 9 times and he survived it. So when somebody sees something like that, oh wow, he got shot and he survived that.
Yeah.
That's gonna spark interest, you know.
Oh yeah.
So
No, I could see that.
It's a big selling point, and it also relates to the way he talks. Like he always has that lisp in his voice, which was gave 50 that unique voice that everyone likes.
Oh yeah, I didn't think about that, but I could see that. I guess yeah.
oh yeah.
For sure. And then just on the other side of note, now where I did not watch the movie, I did listen to the soundtrack, and I gotta say, while not G Unit's, in my opinion, not G Unit's best, definitely Hustler's Ambition. That song's too nice. That's another one that I'll work out to that. I'll be running to that.
Yeah,
Hustler's
he
Ambition
made sure to
because it's
reference
got.
that in the movie.
You say what now?
He made sure that was his final song in the movie that he performed.
Oh, is it really?
live
Oh,
in the
okay.
movie.
See, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean that with that I don't know what sample they use, but there's kind of like these female vocals that starts in the beginning, and the light the fire, that, and then the beat just kicks in, and he just tears it up. So definitely like that song, Hustler's Ambition, and then I mean I don't know, I mean it's more of a slow song, but Best Friend with Olivia. That's a bit, If I was your best friend, like it's catchy. It's catchy. Like I said.
Okay, I'll give Olivia 2 points there.
Damn.
Man, Cam,
It's getting kind of cold, man.
you cold out here.
when it comes to Olivia.
Well,
But
again, she didn't really have much. She didn't get a chance to shine ever.
well, and then so kind of connecting back to what T.O.I. was saying, and Cam, you mentioned it too, about getting shot 9 times and also kind of pushing 50 Cent and the rest of G Unit's popularity on the scene. Now, with that, another thing that could push 50 Cent and G Unit to the scene would have to be, and like I said, beef. And we're going to be talking about beef for a while here because he's beefed with so many people. But we won't touch on everybody, but we will probably mention, because I would say in this category, beef, when it comes to beef with 50 Cent and beef with G Unit, this has both helped them and hurt them. And I would
Yes,
say,
I would say
as an
yeah.
example of helping them, along around that time with him being coming up with a hot selling album. We're talking, Get Rich or Die Trying, the original first studio album, being signed to Dr. Dre and Eminem, getting shot 9 times, and I would say his beef with Ja Rule and Murder Inc. And this story is as old as time. If you've been into hip hop since that time, you know about this. This was a big thing that just seemed to go on for years and years. But long story short, basically, and you guys can give your 2 cents or opinions on this, but from what I see, it looks like the beef ignited between the two, and basically what you had was it was just like a time shift. So not early 90s, but mid to late 90s. We're talking like 96 to like 99, maybe 2000, 2002. Murder Inc. was kind of the East Coast on top, right? Like, you had Ashanti, you had Ja Rule, you had what's
Man.
the girl rapper with
Charlie Baltimore.
Charlie Baltimore, that's right, Charlie Baltimore, and then even some of the what's the guy, Lloyd, R&B singer. So they had, I mean, I ain't gonna lie, they had the radio play hits. Ja Rule, he hate him or love him. Back then, I mean, the man had some good hits, and I don't mind his flow, and he kind of had that raspy, kind of rugged voice. Not everybody's cup of tea. I didn't mind it. I thought it was pretty cool. Like "Living It Up" by Ja Rule. That song, I dig that.
Oh yeah.
But anyways, they were on top, right? They were on top, and then you had this new cat, like we were mentioning, 50 Cent, and he seemed to basically be kind of a more, like I said, grittier and darker version of New York. That was basically where the audience was wanting to go. Less and less. We were seeing less and less radio hits from Murder Inc. They were kind of getting phased out. sounded like besides the beef with 50, sounds like they were having some inner label complications and problems too. When I was looking into it a little bit, and this beef with Ja Rule and 50 did not help their situation because essentially where you had one label kind of fading out, kind of disappearing a little bit, not making as many hot records, you had this artist and his label just like we mentioned before, skyrocketing to fame. And I think from an outsider's point of view, it just looked like the natural progression of this man is the next evolution. This man's the next direction of where hip hop's going to go. And I think the fact that he, as a new artist, could take down, well, supposedly what it seemed like, take down an already well-known and established label and group of artists, basically kind of, even though this might, some people might agree with it, some people might not. But what it looked like was as he was coming up, they were coming down. And a lot of people like to make the connection that he was responsible for it, that he was able to single-handedly or, with his G-Unit members, take down an already established label. And that rose his popularity. That's my takeaway from it. What are your guys' thoughts?
Go ahead, Cam.
Well, I'm saying, he was able to murder the Murder Inc.
Man. And let's go ahead and put that. Dang.
I should have seen that one coming.
I should have seen that one coming. I apologize for doing that.
No, that was a good one. That was a good one right there. We're leaving that in. Moving on. As Ace was saying, like I said, you summed it up very well. Because again, they were on the downcline. Like I said, obviously we could talk about, saying, let us know if you guys would like to hear about the rise and fall of Murder Inc. Like I said, that'd be a great show itself.
Oh yeah, that's
true. We're not getting into this today. We're not getting into this today. But obviously, Murder Inc. was on the downfall at this time. They were, I would say they were on a knife's edge at this time. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It was like, tiltering. Are they going to be around? Or are they not going to be around? Because none of their hits were really, they were a couple of hits, but they weren't really sticking as much as they used to.
Right, exactly.
Then you had this rising group, 50 and G-Unit rising up. And then the beef ensued, and I would say after that beef, where's Murder Inc. now? Like I said, it was just done. And
it was wiped off the face of the earth. Like
it was.
I hate to say it like that, but it was like you just did not hear that name anymore.
Yeah, you didn't hear nothing from Murder Inc. It's like what happened to it? Did 50 just bury this whole company? like he just went there and says, "All right, guys, get in the grave right now. You're done." It just felt like that. Pack it up. Say, I'll give you your own shovel if you want to dig your own grave. It's up to you what you want to do. I can dig it for you, or you can dig it yourself. It just felt like that. Like I said, 50 and G-Unit, like it was a start of this beef phase. That's what I call the G-Unit beef phase, where they beef with everyone. And the whole big thing with Ja Rule and Murder Inc., like I said, it just started out with 50 and Ja Rule and then expanded, obviously, to the whole thing. And again, not even G-Unit. Like I said, it even affected Aftermath at the long haul, if you really think about it. So again, you had a huger substance that happened out of that. And on the other side, it wasn't just affecting Murder Inc. It affected Fat Joe on that side.
Yeah. And kind of like connecting that, because mind you guys, for the people listening to this, like as a kid at the time, like I knew that there was that they were obviously beefing. But, I was a kid, so I didn't pay attention to all the details and everything like that. But I did know, because, again, the way as a kid when you're listening to music, a song comes on the radio or you see a music video, you listen to the words, and then you're like, oh, I didn't realize that such and such was happening. And then you might be able to figure it out, because, again, this was, before the internet the way it is now. You could try to Google it, and maybe there might be something online, but point I'm making is that I knew that it affected Aftermath, like Cam was saying, when Eminem released Toy Soldiers. Love that song. I love Toy Soldiers. And he even mentions Ja and talks about the beef and the problems having with 50 Cent. So, Eminem already just kind of spilling his heart out on the whole beef situation. So that's kind of how we got updated on what was happening, at least for me at the time.
I would say for me, as far as with the whole beef with Ja Rule, I know for me, when I first kind of heard about it, I remember the Wankster song, and I was like, I wonder who he was talking about. And then I started like looking at MTV and things like that, and they started insinuating like the whole thing with him and 50 Cent. Then the Beef DVDs came out.
I was gonna say that, yeah.
And that's what made me really start
Yeah, the beef
understanding
Man.
that, hey, okay,
was
so
a whole-
this
that
what
was
was
a whole
going on.
era right
Yeah, that was a
there.
whole, yes.
So
So,
shout out to Beef
yeah,
DVDs.
so a lot of y'all don't
Yeah,
know that these
shout
Beef
out.
DVDs
Like,
came out
can
in like
we
the
have, like, a little,
2000s.
like, just
And this
bam on
gave
the
you like
screen
a
right
brief
now for Beef
history of beefs that happened in the rap game, all throughout the entire rap game. And so for me, I would say that. And then I would also say there was actually some songs that I heard even when I was a kid. I remember hearing like Ja Rule had that song Clap Back, of course, you know, that song. And I actually remember hearing a song he did where he actually talked about, he actually goes against Eminem, he goes against Dr. Dre, and he even puts Busta Rhymes in there too.
Really? See, I had not heard
Oh,
that.
Yeah.
he's so
No,
stupid.
and then
We're gonna have to bust.
so and then they all clap back with the Hail Mary remix. So it has 50, it has Eminem, it has Busta Rhymes on there, and they just go after Ja Rule on that song. It wasn't too good. Like it.
Yeah, I would say, yeah. Okay, see, I did not know of this side of things.
Yes.
So yeah, I could see where like
No, it
you got
escalated.
all of them coming at you. That, I mean, look, I liked Ja Rule when he was popping and everything, but there's just no way. Like,
So-
you got
Ja-
Dre,
Ja-
Eminem,
yeah.
and Busta coming
Yeah.
at you. Like,
And Busta
You're
was
not
like,
a gritty person. You didn't really do that, just talking stuff around and everything.
oh
Ja.
well, I mean,
It ain't-
he might have been, he might not have been, but I'm just talking about lyric ability. Like if we're talking
again,
purely
like I
rap, there's
said,
no way he's
purely
going
rap.
against Eminem and
Yes.
Busta on the track. Like,
No,
golly.
no,
like,
man, that's too
you
much
already,
to
you already
handle.
just got killed
We ain't even
right
said
there
fifth yet,
just
y'all.
by calling them
You
out,
got two
yo.
men. You got to work. And then, so the thing was, and then like another thing was for me was that, so when I heard that, I was like, oh, there's nothing that Ja Rule can do. Like, you going against these dudes?
Yeah, like who you got?
Yeah.
Like Lloyd? Like
Like
Who else you
get
gonna
Lloyd
bring
on your
Charlie?
track? Who
Who
else
you gonna bring
got?
Charlie Baltimore to help you?
Baltimore to help you? Like, come on.
Ain't nobody gonna do nothing.
Whoa.
So I did some digging, I did some research on some things, and then I found out. So when 50 did get signed to Shady Aftermath and Aftermath, I guess there was a conversation with Ja Rule. I guess he was talking to Eminem, and he was like, and Dr. Dre, and he was telling, he's like, look, man, if 50 comes at me with some songs, then I'm about to just come back at y'all. And so 50 was doing his own thing. And then I guess Ja Rule and Irv Gotti had came at them with the restraining order document saying that he had a restraining order against them or
Against him?
something.
Really? Oh, man.
So 50 then decided to retaliate against them. And then that's when Ja Rule decided to go after Dr. Dre,
Oh, so that's kinda
Eminem.
like
And then I found out that Ja Rule regrets doing that he regretted doing that, going against Eminem and Dr. Dre and all that. Because that
Yeah.
might have.
He does. I mean,
Yeah.
T.Y.
I mean,
T.Y.
I know.
T.Y. like he regrets it. Oh, I wonder why.
I wonder why too. I'm like, that's not a smart move. You don't go against
Oh,
Yeah.
a big
that was not a good move.
two of the
at all.
most powerful guys in the industry, Eminem and Dr. Dre. You don't want to do
Yeah.
that.
And I mean, and
Yeah.
like I said, and yeah, I have no answer for that except for that, it's hip hop, and so when it comes to hip hop, egos are big. Egos are huge. We'll get into that even affecting 50 Cent some here in a little bit, but the point is that maybe he thought, he was Murder Inc. He was untouchable at the time. Maybe he thought that, oh yeah, I can stand up to Dre and Eminem, but nah, it's just
He wasn't big enough for that.
I
He
like
may have
how
been-
that just answer of nah. Just
no, I mean,
Nah.
well, and I think it's smart. Like, why, and like I said, hey, this goes both ways because we'll get into that. You mentioned already, Cam, about bringing in Fat Joe and a couple other people into this beef. It probably for both sides. I'll say it like that. This is going to be advice for both sides. It probably should have stayed 50 and Ja.
Yeah.
Because on Ja Rule's side of things, trying to bring in Eminem and Dr. Dre and Busta Rhymes to beef, that ain't gonna be good for you.
Yeah.
And here we see on the other end, despite because I guarantee you 50 Cent deny this to the day he dies, but 50 Cent, because here's the thing. Here's how I understood it was basically Murder Inc. and Ja Rule, like it was already kind of established. And again, you have to understand, guys, the people listening to this, the decline of Murder Inc. was like rapid. Like we're talking fast. Like like where they were on top making hits, with Ashanti and everybody, radio play, all of that.
My girl Ashanti. Shout out to Ashanti.
Shout
If you
out.
if you ever want to call me, hit me up on Facebook, hit me up on Twitter, on Instagram, girl.
Hey, brother, this ain't the love podcast.
Yeah,
bro.
this ain't the love podcast. Look, that's a different show. But point is it was just so fast to where all of a sudden it was like nothing. It was silent. Now, the one thing that I'm bringing this up is because what I can remember is the song New York, New York. Mm-hmm. And this was like, and I remember even as a kid listening to that saying, oh, hey, Ja Rule, he's back. Because I like that song. New York, New York, that's a good song. It's catchy, got a nice little East Coast beat to it. It's fire. And I remember saying he's back. The fact that I had to say he's back, and it was probably like less than a year and a half, that just shows how much hip-hop had kind of turned away from what it used to sound like and what it used to be like for Murder Inc. And I will say this, like on that song, New York, New York, you had two of the other some of the other successful rappers from NY. You had Fat Joe and Jadakiss. Now, 50 Cent being 50 Cent, like we mentioned with Ja Rule, decided to go ahead and take them into the beef as well. Immediately after that, starts throwing disses at Fat Joe and throwing disses at Jadakiss. So not only do you have Murder Inc., which I think at this point in time was already established that 50 probably felt pretty good. He could probably handle that. But now you're going to have new problems with Terror Squad and with D-Block, from New York. So it's like, okay, that's just more, I guess, beef that, was kind of unnecessary, really. You know what I mean?
Well, he was obviously just thinking like, hey, these other two people in New York was a diss already, you know what I'm saying, to 50 already. So underlying thing. There were some underlying sets in that song, taking shots at 50. And you literally were on a song, Jadakiss and Fat Joe, on the song with you, and he let him take shots at me. Y'all should have just not been a part of that song. Like, it should have been me. And then obviously, as you know, 50's ego got involved and said, nah, if they're on the same song as Ja that disses me, that means they're my enemies too.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, Cam. That's the thing about 50 is like, if you are going against his enemy and you siding with the enemy, he's gonna look at you as an enemy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, 100%. That's just how. 100%. That's the one thing I've noticed throughout the years, that if you're gonna be siding with the enemy against him, he takes that personal, and he's not gonna forgive you for that. Like, he's one of those type of dudes that he's gonna always forever have that in his mind, that this is what you did to me. Yeah. How can I ever see you as a friend after what you've done? That's just how he's always been throughout his career, And so when he seen Fat Joe and Jadakiss on that song, he took that as, okay, you're siding with Ja. You already know we have beef, so you gonna side with them. Okay, well, now y'all my enemies now. Yeah. So that's probably go ahead.
Did y'all hear about that Black Child situation?
Yeah.
Yeah, just recently. Like, obviously, as a kid, I didn't know it at the time, but looking into it and kind of doing
that beef DVD, I'm telling you, that beef DVD told you
everything. Beef DVD, like,
hey,
that might be an episode in the future. We might just talk about
shout outs to beef DVD.
Like, for the modern era, how people like basically diss each other on Twitter. Okay, like imagine Twitter, but instead of reading people dissing, you got full interviews and cam footage on a DVD of just gutter.
It's like a straight up documentary of beefs, baby. Documentary of beefs.
Yep, documentary
of beefs. Oh. And I just wanted to say one more thing. Also, with the whole Ja Rule and Murder Inc. situation about, I didn't know this as a kid, but I guess that there was some things that was going on with the Murder Inc. label. I guess that there was like the feds, they was looking into their record label and stuff for money laundering, things like that. They was thinking that they had ties to a drug dealer named I think his name was like Supreme McGriff or something like that. And so they were really looking into their label, trying to figure out what was going on. Were they tied to him? Were they involved in any killings, things, stuff like that? And so that was kind of putting their record label on hold. And so they couldn't really do anything at that point in time. They was really caught up on this Fed case. And they had to figure out, they might, Irv Gotti, and I think it was his brother, I think, they could possibly had served jail time or whatever. But they ended up getting out of that. But I think that was also another reason why like Ja Rule wasn't really making much music stuff, all that, because all that was going on at the time while 50 was rising up to the top.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's some good insight, Ty. I like that. I like that.
Yeah, no, I said so. I mean, and I think even I don't know about D Block and Rough Riders and Jadakiss side of things, but
We definitely got the
But-
Terror Squad side of things.
but I do know that I mean they would continue to diss Terror Squad, and Terror Squad would clap back, you know, or you know, it was just not on good terms. I mean, hell, I think even to this day, I think Fat Joe and 50
They're good.
are they okay with each
Yeah,
other now?
they had a mutual friend that that had passed, Chris Lighty.
Oh.
Violators, that was their mutual
Okay.
friend.
That was their friend.
Yeah,
Okay,
so they
got
actually
you.
reunite. They're
Did
actually
they
cool
reunite?
now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, hey, good. That's going on. But I will say that I remember those mixtapes coming out for years of just back and forth dissing each other. I think one of Fat Joe's, I forget his name, but one of his fellow Terror Squad label mates, I think he even got in a fist fight with, I don't know if it was Yayo or Banks or something like that. But yeah, it was just the beef between Terror Squad and G Unit was definitely real. And it just seemed to go on, you know.
After the demolish of Murder Inc., it literally just fed into Terror Squad. I saw majority of that.
Right.
Terror Squad was like number one at the top. Obviously, you hear about Jadakiss, but he wasn't. You know, Jadakiss wasn't really making nothing at the time. D Block wasn't really making anything, so it was like the back burner. Like I said, obviously he dissed him, but yeah, Terror Squad was number one on their books at the time.
And you can't forget about that song that 50 made called Piggy Bank, where he just went after Fat Joe, he went after Jadakiss, he went after Nas and Khalees too.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, I don't know why you started beef with all these people.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, but I guess even before that, because I will say, like I said, I wasn't there for the mixtape scene, but before, I think it was even before Get Rich or Die Trying, he had dropped a song called How to Rob.
Mm-hmm.
And he pretty much just, not only East Coast rappers, but he just talks about pretty much almost everybody and anybody of like basically how he was going to rob them. And it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Even Jay-Z. The story I saw was that I guess Jay-Z, you know, took that diss and I guess they performed at some sort of summer jam concert. And I guess here's how the story goes down, at least from what I seen. 50 said that Jay-Z approached him and said, hey, that song you wrote, basically talking about the diss on him, said, I was like, I didn't like it. I wasn't feeling it. And he goes, but at the same time, I was feeling it. So I think that was Jay-Z's way of saying like, hey, that's a hot record, but I don't like you dissing me kind of thing. And then he goes, so I'm going to have to get you back for it. And I guess right after that, he goes on stage and then disses the fuck out of 50 Cent right afterwards. So, you know, that kudos to Jay-Z. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's just wrong right there.
That's pretty awesome. But
like literally, he goes to your face and tells you, "I'm gonna talk trash. I'm gonna talk trash about you." But it's no offense to you. No offense to you. It's just I have to pay.
Hey, that's hip hop, I guess. That's hip hop, you know. But so I think 50 was just no stranger to you know, just causing a ruckus, and you know what we would call, if you want to look at it this way, what might have encouraged a bad habit was, since the start of his career, you know, and getting popular, it seemed like causing a ruckus was doing nothing but making him more successful.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, at
So-
first.
Absolutely true.
At first, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then, so what I would say, and I think I don't think it's very undisputed. You know, there might be some people that may be in denial, but I would say the beef that for me that I was very much involved in, you know, as far as like following up on and everything, was gonna be from previous member, The Game. Okay, so the
This
Game.
is internal. This is an internal beef.
Yes.
saying.
Now, well, internal, and then very, very abruptly and quickly turns external.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So we've talked about, you know, and Ty mentioned definitely this plays a part into it. 50's the kind of guy where loyalty is clearly very important, you know, and he doesn't give no maybes or halfway when it comes to this. So, like we mentioned earlier, Jadakiss and Fat Joe appearing on New York with Ja Rule. 50 looked at that and said, "Oh, you are basically, you know, if you're gonna work with my enemy, you're immediately my enemy." At the same time, though, that just goes to show you that's his mentality for the people that are supposedly his friends or label mates or whatever have you. if you're on 50's team, then you're on his team. If you decide to go venture off of that or stay off of that, then you immediately become his enemy. You're not this halfway, oh no, like, okay, you're kind of cool even though you don't agree with me. No, he sounds like he expects that loyalty to be there. And unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, the most recent addition to the group decided to not share the beef that 50's going. 50 Cent's immediately going after Fat Joe and Terror Squad, immediately going after Jadakiss. We mentioned Piggy Bank, he's going after Nas. And the West Coast voice, the new West Coast voice on the scene that has recently joined G-Unit and had a successful first album, he doesn't really feel the same way. He's not about the beefs with Fat Joe and Jadakiss. I guess he's done work or talked with these artists, and so he just he doesn't feel like that he wants to be a part of it. And so, from my understanding and what I've looked up, 50 doesn't like this, and immediately supposedly, here's how this craziness goes down. Apparently, on radio station in New York, I want to say, I don't know if it was Hot 97 or what, but 50 Cent is on there, and he gets asked, so what's Game's role in G-Unit, right? This is an interview. He's got Lloyd Banks. He's got not Tony, but Young Buck. They're all in the studio together getting questioned about G-Unit and everything. He goes, so what's Game doing? What role does Game have in G-Unit? And 50 Cent makes the comment, across the street or around the block, but he ain't part of G-Unit. And so this is just, there's no like contract or announcement. This is happening live on the radio, where essentially the world is being told for the first time that, Game is no longer a part of it. Funny thing is this is even being unbeknownst to Game himself. So there's no announcement. It's just no announcement at all. 50 just says, yeah, no, he ain't part of the group. And what's even crazier is that this is in New York City, right? So Game is actually with him, and he is with his posse, and they are doing an interview at a different radio station within New York City on the same day. And he doesn't even know this is happening until somebody actually calls in. Somebody calls in to the radio station and tells Game and the disc jockey there at the radio station that, hey, your man 50 Cent is on this radio station talking mad stuff on you right now. He says that you ain't part of G-Unit, that you got to go across the street or around the block because you ain't part of it. And so this is how Game finds out. This is how Game finds out that he has been basically cut off from his label or from the group. And so he rolls up to the radio station that 50 Cent and G-Unit is at. There's confrontation. There's a shootout. One of Game's friends gets shot in the leg. I think later on gets arrested and does jail time. So it's this big fiasco. And it's just a mess. And this would basically start off what I would consider just a rough and, hardcore beef from for G-Unit. G-Unit, not only 50 Cent, but G-Unit as a whole, G-Unit as a label. And what I would say is, not me personally, I would say this is a huge reasoning of the beginning of the decline of G-Unit, would be this beef with Game. Because
he got the whole group involved. Everyone was dissing Game at this time.
They were trying to answer back, yes, and but Game wasn't holding no punches. He was going after everybody. Everybody in that label was fair game.
He did not care.
But yeah, so that's kind of how that started. Your guys' thoughts and opinion, or what was your thoughts about this whole story, or even during the beat?
Go ahead, Cam.
Well, like I said, I can only talk about my own perception of it.
That's fine.
It seems like, Ace, you were on par with everything, I was thinking what happened during the whole situation. It was that disloyalty I saw with the situation. And, that kind of, basically saying, oh, you're going, you're not beefing with these people like I'm beefing, and my group is beefing with them too. You're not part of us. And that kind of situation, mentality, that ego again, affected. And that kind of situation. And calling him out on a radio station with him not even knowing about it.
Right.
How disrespect? Like, that is just disrespect. Like, that is like the epitome of disrespect I have ever heard.
Yeah. It's
like,
insane.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? You like that, like say like you're on the radio station. Oh yeah. It's like someone else calling. Guess what? You ain't part of the label. He called you out. What?
That would be like imagine having a day off of work, and then your coworker calling you on your day off. Like you know you off work, you trying to handle things, or you just relaxing, and your coworker says, "Yo, the boss man, he over here says that you're fired. Like you don't have a job. Don't ever come back." Like imagine that's how you know that you got fired. Like
Yeah, that's true.
It's not appropriate. Like what happened there? Like it was not appropriate. That's not how things work in any industry.
Right.
And he just
maybe in the G-Unit industry. But
oh man, let's stop talking about it. But the fact that happened, and also don't get me wrong, both of y'all, but didn't 50 feel like he didn't get credit for some of the album, the first documentary?
Yeah, I mean, there's the story, and listening to both sides, 50 Cent's pretty much what he said was that besides the disloyalty, he felt like Game owed him a little bit more. He felt like he did a lot of work on Game's first studio album, and that he should have got, if not money or compensated money-wise, but he felt like maybe a little bit more respect. I mean, I don't know. 50,
give
again,
me
like you said,
my
ego.
motherfucking money.
He definitely felt like, he was shortcomed on the work he did for Game's first album. I've also heard some things that he was also kind of upset with Dr. Dre because I guess at the time, and just to kind of give people at home listening the time frame, Game's documentary album was coming out, and then at the same time, 50 Cent was working on his second album, which would have been The Massacre. And from what I've heard is that since both artists are signed to Aftermath, Dr. Dre is supposedly supposed to be working on both these albums, but I guess the Game project was taking up a little bit more extra time, and Dr. Dre had chose to continue working on the Game project, and 50 Cent didn't like waiting around. He didn't like waiting around for Dr. Dre to finish up on his album, so he ended up releasing it with not as much input from Dr. Dre as, say, the first album, Get Rich or Die Trying. And I think that rubbed 50 the wrong way a little bit.
Again, that ego and disloyalty, that thing about it's all about me. And, I would say those are the big points, and obviously, And then we get to your favorite saying, Ace, the whole G.U. Not campaign that
Let me hear you say G.U. Not
saying throughout the years to us.
Oh yeah. I mean, because at this point in time, like Game, like I said, I will say this: like I've heard of beefs, and stuff like that happen between hip hop, and I would say that Game's campaign, I'll call it that, a campaign beef. Not only did it last years, but it was just it was relentless. I mean, it was just diss track after diss track after diss track. I think in total, this man might have like 6 full mixtapes of nothing but just diss tracks on 50 and the unit. Like, and I think for me, again, this I can only speak for myself. The reason why I was attracted to these disses and why they were like, why I was all about it was because they were hilarious. Like,
they were pretty funny.
Like, here was a rapper that was all, gangster, hardcore, talked about that West Coast life. That was one thing. But then you really got to see a real comedic side of Game. Like, this, I feel like this was the era where, like, people got to see the inside of Game's comedic personality. I mean, he had these brothers dressed up like Ghostbusters. He would have them he just got real creative with these diss tracks. I mean, I think he even called, like, Olivia a man, secretly was a man. He used to call her Oliver. He had full songs dedicated to her being a man. I mean, just like these ridiculous, outlandish diss tracks that not only did he lyrically, were they, they were decent, but they were just funny. It's absolutely funny. And then, he would get some, some good features on there. Like, he had Nas on a couple songs. Kanye West was on a couple songs. And, I just think they were cleverly implemented and put in. I can see where some people would be like, okay, like, we're kind of tired of hearing it over and over again. But at the same time, though, when it's no stranger, when you get told something over and over and over again, it gets implemented in people's minds. So, where you once had this untouchable group, G-Unit, they're supposed to be the most hardcore, they're supposed to be the most down-to-earth, gritty gangsta, and then all of a sudden you keep getting reminded of, like, how clownish or how silly they might be or how this... When you have somebody just doing that over and over, I do think it kind of put a dent in the image. I'll say it like that. maybe they're not so untouchable. You know what I mean? At least from on that part of thing. You know, for some people it might have been all the way. They might have just like me. Obviously, it worked for me. I was like, yo, these brothers ain't nothing. You know, like, I was like West Coast Game, Black Wall Street, GU not all the way. You know, and his posse that he had. I mean, Game, like as much as we talked about Lloyd Banks having some talent, Young Buck being ferocious. Game, he got some heaters on there as far as like people to back him up. Like it wasn't just him by himself. What he ended up getting was he ended up getting Technique. And if you guys don't know, Technique was part of, well, technically he was part of the Dog Pound, but then he ended up becoming part of the LBC crew. They were basically an old West Coast 90s G-Funk group, part of, they would do records with Badass, Trey D, the East Siders, all them. Technique would actually join Game in Diss and G-Unit. And again, you got that Long Beach style, killing it. And then on top of that, so you had Technique, you had Game, and then he also got Eastwood. Eastwood is a rapper from Inglewood, California, and he was actually signed to Suge and Death Row. And, and so he was no stranger to coming out with that just kind of like gangster style and, vicious beats, And so when you got brothers like Eastwood, Technique, and Game just throwing disses at G-Unit, they're pretty good. Like I said, I had to say they kept their own. It wasn't like they were kind of like, okay, skip this song. They were relentless. They didn't hold back anything. And they, being West Coast artists, it just worked. It just worked. So I'll say it like that. That was my dive into it. And I think one other thing I'll say is the big thing that got people's attention was Game's 300 bars and running. I think that's what I was gonna say that
next,
song was on the first You Know What It Is Volume 3. That's the first mixtape where he starts dissing the G Unit and 50 Cent, and the song is like almost 13 minutes long. It's just a nonstop Game just destroying it. And he samples so many good beats, and Game is able to kind of switch his flow to the beats and just keep at it. I mean, so yeah, really, really excellent diss, even though it's lengthy, but it's relentless. I will say it like that. The Game's beef with them, it was just this onslaught of disses. And the Unit, I don't know if you guys know, as far as the response goes, I mean, I remember hearing about one mixtape, I think, where they responded, but again, I don't even think 50 was that much involved, really.
Most of the mixtape I heard was Piggy Bank. Piggy Bank, he just had everyone
on there.
And obviously, Game was portrayed as the Mr. Potato Head on the cover of the
Right.
Oh,
album.
okay,
Right.
that's right.
Right.
That's
Yeah, and I think at that time when Game was going off on 50, 50 was already trying to get into his business mind. Yeah. So he was trying to do the movie. He was trying to do other stuff. So when he got free, that's when he started doing, he was going after Game and stuff like that. And man, they was just going back and forth, man. It was just a lot of back and forth. Game and Fifth, they were, and the whole G Unit, I should say. And then Game was doing his thing. But I do think that it did have something to do with their fall somewhat because, Game was part of that. Game was part of G Unit, man. And then once he left, and he started dissing them, nobody was really dissing him like that. That was like a first. You had Ja Rule, but at that time Ja Rule was fading.
right.
Game was already on his way up.
Mhm.
So it was just kind of like, oh snap, like, this is something here. Somebody's actually challenging 50. So
Yeah.
and then also, there was the bad blood. Ace, you talked about there was like the shooting at the studio, at the studio and stuff in New York. And then I did some research, and then I guess there was Jimmy Hitchman was Game's manager at the time. And so I guess what happened was, allegedly Tony Yayo had slapped Jimmy Hitchman's son.
Oh, damn, yeah.
Yeah, that allegedly.
That's what happened.
Allegedly, that's what happened. And I guess his friend Lodi Mack, that was Yayo and 50. I think Banks' friend too.
Oh, okay.
So he ends up going to prison for 2 years for that whole incident with him being slapped.
Oh, wow.
Of Jimmy Hitchman's son getting slapped. So when he gets out, Lodi Mack gets out. 2 weeks after he gets out, he gets killed. So come to find out, Jimmy Hinchman was the one that set up the order for him to get hit. So
Damn.
this really turned really bad. This was some bad blood. So this was bad blood. So this is why these guys, I can't see these guys ever reuniting ever again, because this was his good friend that got killed.
Right.
50's friend. So this turned out to be, at first it was on wax, then it got deadly. So now it's just like, it just got crazy, man. So it was the shooting, and then also they had the press conference. I remember seeing that when I was a kid.
Oh, okay, yeah, I remember reading about it in XXL, but I never actually saw it.
Yeah, I remember seeing, I think it was like on BET or something like that.
Mm.
And I remember seeing it as a kid, and then I was like, okay. But at that time, you can just look in their faces, and it was like, it doesn't look genuine at all. Like,
Yeah, I remember seeing the photos in XXL magazine, and like I saw like 50 Cent on a podium.
yeah.
And then I just remember Game kind of standing there like he did not want to be there.
Right.
So I was just like, damn.
Yeah, they was like doing it for charity or something, but you could tell both of them they didn't want to be there. And
When it's funny you mention that too, because I mean, because again, I wanted to be perfectly clear. I was biased at the time. I was completely like, I got all the mixtapes of game dissing 50 Cent and G-Unit, and like he even mentions that press conference. He calls, he even calls out 50 and disses him at the press conference, something like that. So on the mixtape, so I'm like, damn, like that didn't take very long, like.
yeah,
So,
it didn't take long at all. But yeah, this beef here, man, was something, man.
it's ugly.
It was really ugly.
It's pretty ugly.
Really ugly.
Yeah, T-Wise, like I said, that was, what you just said there, saying it was more eye-opening for the situation I was looking into. Yeah, that all that stuff you're saying, it happened. And, saying, when we actually get to people actually dying, then it's like, man, like, how long does this go on? And being just, obviously just on all sides, obviously still during this time, terror units still taking shots at you. So you basically getting called out from the inside of your group. You know what I'm saying? The game, who was literally just in your group, is calling you out. And then you have, the terror squad still calling you out. And, obviously still the other members that don't like you, but and everything. So it's like, how do you win? Like, you started all this, but you can't finish it because, again, there's just so many people hating you at this time.
Right. And it was just, like you said, Cam, it was a lot of beefs, that they had. It was like,
Yeah.
as soon as they rose to the top, there was people coming after them, but they kind of put it on themselves. Like, especially, because 50 didn't have to go after Fat Joe and Jadakiss. He could have left it alone, but he just decided to go after and attack them. And then not only that, you just bringing on more problems. And now it almost seemed like they was going after the whole rap industry almost.
Yeah.
So it was just
I would
like,
agree with you. It was there were some beefs that just didn't make sense. Like, it was just 50. I want to start beef with this person, and that's what it felt like. It was like, why?
Right.
Why?
Right. And then it just goes back to what we were talking about before, as 50 being the troll that he is. Like, this is how he came into the game. He came in as a troll, like what Ace was saying on How to Rob. And then there was some stuff that I read about, like, I don't know, maybe this has something to do with it too, but so he was signed to Columbia Records, and then when he got shot 9 times, he got dropped from the label, and then they blackballed him and told him that, look, nobody works with him because he's just dangerous. He shouldn't work with him at all. Wow. So maybe there was some sort of vendetta against the whole industry because of how this whole situation, of people just staying away from him and things of that nature. So who knows?
Yeah. Maybe it could be. And kind of like you're saying, like, he didn't let up either. Like, cause like I said, for people that are kind of like wanting to know kind of like a time frame. So I would say the rise and success, we're looking at like, 50's kind of up and coming. Oh, I don't know, maybe 2000, 2001. By 2003, for sure, hitting the scene. And I would say 2003 to 2005, you're talking peak Gina. That's what we were talking about, the years of success. Now, Game would leave and cause this beef, right? Would be kind of within 2005 going into 2006. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because I'm going to jump a couple years ago into, so another kind of well-established New York group and scene on the East Coast at this time would have been Dipset. And this is coming from rapper Cameron, Jules Santana, Jim Jones. Now, I will say they were kind of, at this point in time, 2007, having a little bit of rough time. We'll get into a little bit that later on, just because, like we've talked about before, hip-hop is always moving forward, trying to see what's next. And New York hip-hop was definitely having a rough time at this point. That early 2000 sound wasn't hitting the same way it was, and there was a new sound at this current time, 2007, 2008. But anyways, the reason why I bring this up is because, and maybe if you guys got any more information on this, but supposedly, I guess 50 Cent was on a radio or something like that, and he basically said that there is nobody on Koch Records, right? And I don't know the exact wording, but basically he was saying like, ain't nobody worth listening to on that's signed to Koch Records. Now, Cameron and Dipset happen to be signed to Koch Records. So I guess Cameron calls up to the radio station that 50 Cent's being interviewed on and doesn't like that. And basically starts, as anybody would, saying, hey, Dipset, we're better than the unit. Dipset been around, Dipset, Harlem, all this thing. And that's kind of what causes this beef. So already you're soaked in beef, soaked in blood if you want to, you're trying to continue the your label, and then you go and I don't know, to me it might seem like, why would 50 say something like this to take on more beef? But then again, Cameron was the one that took offense and called the radio station. So I don't know, what do you guys think? Do you think 50 Cent was asking to cause a problem, or was Cameron just needing to jump?
I watched that whole interview. It was very entertaining just to see how it just escalated so quickly.
Oh, really?
Like, it's just, like I said, it was a whole, you know what I'm saying? It's just like literally 50 Cent, like you said, 50 Cent called out Koch Records. There's nobody. And then he said, we have Cameron on the line. Oh yeah, what about us and everything.
Damn.
It's like, and it was like one of those little situations. It feels like, well, you know what I'm saying, y'all, but as I stated before, there is no one. There is
he
no
says
one,
that. Oh,
there is no one on Koch Records. Like, he just straight up said that. And then Cameron says, "How many sales did your boy Banks do? Like I said on the second album, how many records did he sell? My boy Jewels did more sales than that." And they talk. Obviously Cameron's talking about numbers now,
right?
Bringing up numbers and everything, and saying, "Oh yeah," and everything. And then he brought up Yayo, saying, "Yayo, how many records did he put up?" Cameron was talking numbers, like straight
Damn,
up.
Cameron did that homework.
Cameron, tell me how many records. And 50 was like, "Oh, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, they still make more money and everything than you and everything. It's not about record sales. It's about we still got money. You know what I'm saying? We're still getting paid. You guys are, basically have no money. So it's like, so what does it matter how much records we put up? We still making money every day. We have our hands and everything." And Cameron just took offense to that, and that's when you get to the whole beef between Cameron and 50. And then obviously, maybe another episode or something like that, we talk about the downfall of Dipset.
Yeah,
the escalation of this again, because there's other escalation that did follow the decline of Dipset. But Dipset wasn't. Again, I hate to say 50 was right, but 50 was kind of right at that time period, because Dipset really didn't have anything.
And you know what? And maybe it's a good time to kind of intervene. I know we've been talking about the beefs, but like also I want people to know too, like hip hop is a quick not universe, but atmosphere. It's constantly moving. And it don't stay the same for very long, and it's just such a stark difference. And this will definitely be an episode in the future, but the change from the early 2000s as we get into the later 2000s, and as I was telling you before, New York hip-hop was not doing so well at the time, and it was almost becoming a stigma. Like, there was even, I remember reading articles in XXL magazine saying, like, New York is dead. There was this kind of, like, nasty stigma that New York rappers couldn't shake, where there's the idea that East Coast hip-hop was dead. I don't know who started it, why it got started, but I can say that it was definitely in relation to what was hot at the time was Atlanta. The city of Atlanta, the city of Houston, Texas, the South. The South could do no wrong at this point in time. You had artists like Ludacris, Young Jeezy, T.I., Rick Ross was coming up down in Miami. Lil Wayne was hot on the mixtape game. I mean, and even brothers that aren't even around anymore, but like you saw doing big numbers. I mean, what was his name? Was it Rich Boy? Throw some D's.
Yeah.
That I think that might have been his only song. But
no,
you best believe everybody was bumping that on the radio back then.
Yeah.
And so there was just this sound that was hot. Them Franchise Boys, D4L, that new East Coast New York rappers from early 2000s could not imitate, or maybe didn't even want to imitate. Which take it how you will. that's just how it was. So
we move at God's speed, our purpose is true. We move at God's speed, our purpose is true.